You may be familiar with the story that I'm going to speak about tonight. It is the story of King Nebuchadnezzar and also Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And if you like tongue twisters, you can throw that one in, that list of three names in there with Peter, Piper, pecked a peck of pickled peppers, or however you say it. Say that several times fast and you'll be ready to go. So, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and King Nebuchadnezzar. It's the story we find in the book of Daniel, chapter 3. And here's the long and short of it. King Nebuchadnezzar was reigning at this time, and he was a very powerful king. He made an order, an edict he sent out for a statue to be built of his likeness. And then the edict also went out that all people must bow down to this figurine, this statue of the king, and to worship him. And many people did this. Many people, in fact, they set aside their whatever their spiritual beliefs were in order to acquiesce to this request of the king. But Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they did not. And so the king gets word of this, and he hauls them in and asks them to give an account for their action. And they, in not so many words, tell the king, listen, we're not doing it. And it doesn't matter what retribution you would like to take against us. Our God is going to deliver us. And so this, of course, made the very prideful king furious. And so this is what he did. Daniel chapter 3. Beginning with verse 13, we read, Then Nebuchadnezzar, in furious rage, commanded that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego be brought. So they brought these men before the king, and Nebuchadnezzar answered and said to them, Is it true, O Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you do not serve my gods or worship the golden image that I have set up? And it continues on this way, and they say later on in verse 16, O king, we have no need to answer you in this matter. If this be so, our God, whom we serve, is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace. And he will deliver us out of your hand, O king. But if not, be it known, O king, that we will not serve your gods or worship the golden image that you have set up. And so these three men were quite defiant, regardless of the outcome that was coming for them, however uncertain that was. So the king, he ordered this furnace lit, and so hot was this furnace that the men who were tending to it, the men who created this fiery blaze into which Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego would be ultimately cast into, these men, they died. That is how great and all-encompassing this fire was. And so Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego ordered into the furnace. And some time we are to understand passes, and still they are not being consumed by the fire. And then we read of the king's reaction. This is what we read. Beginning with verse 24, Then King Nebuchadnezzar was astonished and rose up in haste. He declared to his counselors, Did we not cast 3 men bound into the fire? They answered and said to the king, True, O king. He answered and said, But I see 4 men unbound walking in the midst of the fire, and they are not hurt. And the appearance of the 4th is like the son of the gods. And so it was that day, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were delivered even from the fiery furnace that they had been cast into because of the rage of King Nebuchadnezzar. And it was that day that the king sent out an edict that all people, instead of worshiping him, must worship the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And more than this incredible conversion, I want to highlight what I believe to be one of the greatest promises in all the Bible, And that promise is simply this, that God is with us. Certainly our understanding of that fourth person in the fire is God himself. God was there. He was providing for them in that very difficult time, providing for their safety and well-being during that very scary and fearful time. And he was there to protect them. They stepped out in faith. They put their necks out there, and God was faithful to come through. And not simply in order that they might be vindicated, but also to demonstrate to King Nebuchadnezzar that he was not the one to be worshipped, but God alone. And so it was an incredible demonstration and manifestation of God's power in those days, a manifestation of God's power that is unparalleled in many respects throughout the Bible, save for a handful of instances. And so we look to this as a mighty story of what God can do to deliver his people. But don't forget what became of Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar that day ordered that all the people would go and worship the Lord, and that they must do this Lord of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. But just one chapter later, in chapter 4, he succumbs to his own pride. And he falls into a season of punishment because he would not be humbled. And so he has this conversion experience we might understand him to be experiencing here with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, but this does not endure, and he continues to learn what it means to grow in faith in God. And God is willing to let him learn those hard lessons. And so may we take notice as well that God means business when it concerns our idolatry. And indeed that is the case. Time and time again we read in the Bible in one form or of another, the sin that we read about in the Bible, it is a form of idolatry. It is a variation of this prideful idea in which we say that we know better than God. And that really isn't the case. But when we do that, what we're saying is it is not God who is worthy of worship, but it is us. And friends, that cannot be. It cannot be at all that we take the place that only belongs to the Lord. And so in these very uncertain times, and these days of the coronavirus, I pray for each of us that we would not lose sight of the God that we love, and that we would not waver in our faith, but instead that we would look to God and look to his promises, believe that they were true, believe in his power to deliver us even from this moment, and cling to that faith, that we might never substitute ourselves for the place and the position of prestige that only belongs to God. And so that is the message I have for you tonight, as the last light is ultimately waning, and it has been a pleasure to be with each of you tonight. I hope that you keep safe and that you are well, and we will see you again soon. God bless.